Hello, tea family. How are you today? Welcome to our live event with Nonna's Kitchen Secrets. We're going to talk about tea today. We're also going to be talking about sourcing ingredients. So first, let's start by saying hello. If you are with us, I want you to say hello in the comments or chat, depending on which platform you're using, and let us know what's in your cup tonight. As always, as we go through this, please feel free to ask any questions you have as we go. I'm really excited that you're here today. We're going to be talking about some things that are really important to me and just enjoying some tea while we do it. So today, let's go ahead and we're going to talk tonight about the real ingredients that go in your cup of tea, things that you don't necessarily see on the label, farm certification, sourcing, testing, all that sort of stuff. But first, we're going to get started. And I thought, let's make some Earl's Blend tonight. It's a little chilly today, and so I decided to make I had originally thought I was going to make an iced tea, but then it is very chilly where we are. So I have some Earl's Blend all ready to go. My handy dandy assistant is already going to grab the kettle. So I'm going to make some Earl's Blend, which is not necessarily a tea blend that I make very often. It is occasionally, it's not as close to my favorite as Serene Sunrises. Okay, so we're gonna put some of the tea, there we go, in, and then I have this wonderful cup that my daughter gave me for Christmas, and we're gonna get started now. It's a black tea, so Earl's Blend for us, or an Earl Grey, is typically a black tea blend, typically an English breakfast type of blend, but it also has bergamot in it. So that's what we're going to have. What's funny is I see that Stephanie has Highland Dawn in her cup, and Diane has switched to Highland Dawn this afternoon. I saw that because there is, for our post today, there is a poll out there. So if you're watching, please go look for the poll and vote. We're trying to decide. There's been a little bit of pressure on me to try and create and have our Highland Dawn blend, which is basically a Scottish breakfast tea, become a permanent part versus only being available the day of our live Facebook sale. And so I have that up there, and I know that people, I know that people have been already voting, and that's why I saw that a couple of people have already been enjoying Highland Dawn today. But I am doing this, and my handy dandy assistant did set the timer for 3 minutes for me, right? I need my handy dandy assistant to do about 2.5 minutes now. So, but Earl's Blend is either one of those things that people either love or they don't care for at all. Like I said, just that simple black tea blend, often in an English breakfast or a more traditional breakfast blend, and then bergamot, which is in the orange family. So I'm going to have a cup of that tonight and enjoy some hot tea versus an iced tea. All right. So I lost track of where I was. All right. We're letting this go. So we're going to start by brewing our tea. It is a black tea, so it'll be 3 minutes for the very first brew. And of course, you can brew it 3 times. So did you know that the average tea bag that you get in the grocery store contain pesticides, flavor enhancers, and even microplastics? None of that sounds like things that I want to consume. And that's why we do things differently. So that's what today we're talking about. Is I want to talk about how we source our ingredients and why it matters, both for health, peace of mind, taste buds, different things like that. So that's what we're going to be talking about primarily today. Again, questions, put them in the chat or comments, depending. That is perfectly fine. I am happy to answer questions. I also want to say thank you. I had a group reach out to me a few months ago, and then my calendar was just really crazy. And so I was only able to chat with them last Thursday. But last Thursday, I actually was talking to a group of people that are very health conscious and trying to eat as cleanly as possible, non-GMO, organic, that sort of thing. And we actually had a really delightful conversation about sourcing ingredients and the nature of how to enjoy foods and tea specifically, in a way without all the chemicals, without putting pesticides in your body and different things like that. And I want to thank them for that opportunity in Salina. I really appreciated that. I had fun. They were a great group, had lots of questions, and were very, very interested. We did treat them to their choice. They could have, we brought Serene Sunrise and Ruby Chai just for them to enjoy. And so I do want to say that and shout out to them. I would say if the kinds of things that we're talking about today are interesting to you at all, there are typically local groups that will concentrate on those kind of healthful benefits of not just tea, but all foods in your community. So feel free to join one or look for them. All right, I'm going to take some things down. All right. And then, for instance, I talked about, there you go. I feel like a little bit of sugar tonight. So I use organic non-GMO cane sugar. It is actual real stuff, not processed at all. And that is typically what I will enjoy. When I put any kind of sweetener in my tea, that is what I will typically put in. And then for a black tea on a day like this, I want to add a little bit more creaminess. Now this is just regular, well, it's basically cream from my local farm where I wave to my cows every day, or I did when I was on my way to work. So cheers. A nice hot cup of tea on a chilly day. Perfect. Okay, so why do ingredients matter? So we're going to start with a very simple truth. Not all tea is created equal. A lot of those commercially grown teas are grown with chemical fertilizers. They're sprayed with synthetic pesticides. And I always want to warn people that stuff doesn't just stay on the leaves. It really ends up in your mug, and therefore when you drink it, it ends up in you. When we started Nonna's, we were determined that it was only going to be, our ingredients were only going to be organic, 100%, make sure they were going to be organic and non-GMO. We wanted to ideally find things locally, but we really wanted to make sure that what we were doing, whether it was the tea leaves, the cinnamon, the fruit that we were going to freeze dry, any of that actually came from places where we could make sure that it was the best quality and that weren't adding anything to it that I didn't want to consume. So it became really hard. Sometimes that's what takes a long time. For instance, we're talking about Highland Dawn. Highland Dawn includes a tea from Kenya, and it was really hard to make sure that we could find a source that was reliable, within budget, and could be USDA certified, as well as we can guarantee it was non-GMO and ethically sourced. You know, you start to add all these things in and it becomes harder and harder to find. Now, most of the things that we find are, we either grow it ourselves, like our peppermint, which is a good thing because peppermint actually, fresh peppermint leaves that are grown commercially actually tend to use a lot of pesticides, which is kind of interesting because around here, peppermint is considered an invasive species, in which case they are like, oh, please don't plant that. It's going to take over. So you don't really need to add all that to have peppermint thrive, but I get it. The crops come in faster. They come in fuller. There's more of them. It's an economic thing. But if we can't grow it ourselves, we do have a few local farmers who are organic. And so we get them in things like that. I talk about one of them, Bubba's market stand or farmstead. She is a great person, and we go to a lot of farmers markets with her, and she has organic foods that are truly organic. And she grew a whole bunch of chamomile for us. Now, the rest of the chamomile I had to source out of Egypt, which is kind of funny. But to get organic and non-GMO without any of those pesticides is really hard to have that consistency. So this is one of the reasons why our Macintosh apples, they come from, small farms, family-owned farms, family-owned orchards. Many of them are using heirloom apples. So not only are they grown without being genetically modified, but they're also grown organically. We do connect with our suppliers. We do ask questions. We check certifications, typically on an ongoing basis, to make sure they're still certified and everything. Literally every single ingredient that goes into our teas has to meet a certain standard before it comes into the cup. I did share, there's a story behind that. I did share that I started having some health issues. And so when we started to make the teas, that was really important to us because we were trying to reduce as many kind of man-made chemicals and man-made items in our food. And so that was one of the things that we feel really passionately about our tea. It makes us different, but also at the same time, I know that when I'm putting in my body doesn't have all that extra stuff that I don't want to have. The other thing that we do is different is small batch. And this makes a big difference because we don't have to mass produce. We blend our teas in small batches. And so that means we can really guarantee quality, consistency, freshness. It means your tea hasn't sat, now I've got nautical twilight right here, but hasn't sat in a warehouse for a year waiting to be shipped out in a box. And as you know, time can diminish flavor and quality of teas. So you know that ours is going to be fresher, more fragrant, ready to enjoy. But this is when we say small batches, typically we're doing it in a glass jar like this. We'll fill the jar up about 2/3, maybe halfway, no more than 2/3 of the way. And then if you look really closely, it's not very well mixed in there. And this is literally what we do, okay? We'll put it in there, all the ingredients in there. We'll weigh them out ourselves. And then you see how gentle I'm rolling this. I'm not going super, super fast. I'm just really gently rolling it. First, that's because I don't want to break down the tea leaves. Second of all, we found that just this gentle roll really does a good job of mixing everything up. And if you look now, if you can see it, everything is really well mixed in there, even though lemongrass is really light and some of the ginger and hibiscus are going to be heavier. And that's how we do it. And then we mix them up in these glass jars. They're just regular glass mason jars. We've just tagged them. And then it'll go from here right into the pouches. In fact, there's about an ounce in this one. And we are going to have to bag this up because obviously this is light and we always want everything dark. So we'll take it out of the glass jar and then we'll put it into the packaging and then that's it. And so that's what we mean to keep our ingredients small batch. And because we're literally inspecting every batch, it's not being sent through a machine. It's not being sent through anything in particular other than like it gets in the package and it gets sent to us. And they typically, the small co-ops that we like, they're family co-ops that they've gathered together so they can kind of compete against the big guys, so to speak. They really respect the land and the plants, and they're not trying to throw chemicals in. It's what they consume themselves. And so they band together, and those co-ops don't get all fancy packaging. It's typically a foil bag for a lot of the time. So then we'll go ahead and we'll take it from there. But that's one of the reasons why we do what we do in small batches. We also get the opportunity to really inspect that product, smell it, make sure it smells. I mean, like, I'm sorry, but hibiscus should smell like hibiscus. It shouldn't smell like the packaging, things like that. And that's our commitment to you, that every raw ingredient that we use is actually coming at its peak of quality for us. So I can take a couple of sips of my tea. I want to ask you a question. So why do you choose organic tea? Health reasons, ethical farming, flavor. I'm interested in why you choose organic tea as opposed to all the other teas that are out there. I always find it interesting to see why people make the choices that they do. I can tell you that for us, it's just we are trying to be really clean in how we eat and try and be as close to nature as possible. When we started this business, it started very simply. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, a lot of our favorite tea rooms closed. We couldn't get the teas from them anyway. And so what ended up happening was we were like, all right, well, we'll just start making our own tea, I guess. But because we're trying to be as organic and not have those pesticides and those chemicals added on as possible, we were like, all right, well, it needs to be organic. And then we found out the difference of not having it be genetically modified, because sometimes that's just not a good thing. We wanted to be as heirloom and close to how nature intended it to be. And so we started getting all those ingredients. So I'll put some things here. Stephanie wanted flavor. She didn't want the chemicals. I agree. You get the real flavor. I love how my handy dandy assistant said I chose for him. And I guess in a way we kind of did, but we kind of chose it together. So we did. We created the blends that we wanted first. The ones that we really, really liked that we were having a hard time finding. And then, the business grew from there. We had it. Some family and friends would drink it and they're like, this is really good. You should sell it. And then that's when we started going to farmers markets and really small events and just kind of doing online sales and things like that. Now it's grown and I'm thankful, but that's why we started, because it makes a difference to us. And so that's kind of what we brought to the table. And that's why we're really focused on being intentional about the ingredients and everything. So I wanted to share that and kind of talk about that. So how do we source? Literally, here's the process. If I need an ingredient, for instance, if I need peaches, right? I'm giving you a hint. In June, our Summer Kiss, which is our peach tea, our peach green tea blend, will be available again. So let's talk about peaches, right? We wanted to get them, first of all, right from the source. We want to be as close to the source as possible. We want to be as local as possible. So we know people that are also like the same things that we do, organic, non-GMO foods. And we go to farmers markets with them. And they know someone who owns an orchard that has heirloom peaches, and they are certified organic in Colorado. Now, having come from the Southeast, including Georgia, although there's more peaches grown in Florida than Georgia, but what can I say? I was like, I didn't know the peaches could grow in Colorado. I thought that it would be too cold there, but apparently not. And our friends go there. The orchard owner literally will say, hey, harvest is going to be like next week. So how many peaches would you like? They literally drive to Colorado. They pick up the peaches for themselves for the year. And now they add in, they're kind enough to pick up the peaches for us for the entire year. And so then we get those peaches literally within a day or two of them being picked from the farm. And then we take them in. And then when a fruit comes in, whether it's strawberries, like very much the same, we get the fruit right directly from the owners. Florida strawberries are typically what we're getting. And as soon as they come into our home, they're immediately getting prepared and thrown into the freeze dryer. And that just means, like for strawberries, we're washing them, we're hulling them, and we're slicing them, and then they're going in the freeze dryer. Same thing with the peaches. We are washing them, and then we're pitting them, and then slice them up, and then put them in the freeze dryer. And that's it. No citric acid, no chemicals or ingredients or anything to stop it from browning, because we literally get it in the freeze dryer fast enough so that it freezes and we don't have a problem. But that's it. We like to go right from the farm. I can ask them questions. I can talk to them. I've met the farmers that are farming the fruit and things like that. So Diane shares that she wanted the flavor, no chemicals, and organic. She is also going back to the basics. And that's it. It's just a matter of going back to how it's supposed to be. So we'll have a lot of kind of conversations. We'll do research. I will check, are they certified organic? So you can have other certifications without going through the whole process to be certified by the USDA. And I understand that there are a lot of people that have what is truly organic foods that don't want to go through that process. It's an expensive process and it's a long process. However, we choose not to use those for any of the teas that we make for sale. We might pick up something for our own personal use on those, but I can't guarantee, because they're not getting that certification or they're not being recertified. So I can't guarantee that just because they haven't done it in the past, that they're going to continue it that way. So I don't trust it for the teas. So that's how we do it. When we move outside, again, I try and go local farm first, and then I have to look at the co-ops. So let's talk about Highland Dawn. I needed that Yunnan tea from Kenya because it has a certain flavor to it that really makes that tea correct for the Scottish blend, right? And it was really hard to find, and I had to go again with a very small co-op, and that one costs a little bit more to get that tea in, but it's what made all the difference, because now I know first of all, they've gone through the process for USDA organic certification. Second of all, they're being tested regularly. They're not being, it's heirloom. They've been doing it for years. They haven't gone and bought seeds to plants that have been modified or anything like that. And so we have to find them, and it takes a long time. There are certain ingredients that we still don't have right now because I can't source them, or I don't know that I can trust the sourcing, or just because anybody could slap a label on there that says organic, but that, especially if they're in a different country, that doesn't necessarily mean they're really truly certified organic. And that's why we require that USDA certification. So that is why we do what we do. That's why it's important to us. And I thought I'd share that. It's a process. It's kind of like when we make our teas and we create this tea blend, and then, Rich and I are very much, okay, we think we've got it right. And then we send it to testers who have different taste palettes. And they're like, yeah, it needs this, or I don't know, this was a little overwhelming. And then we get, or no, I really liked it just how it is. We send out those flavors. We get that feedback. They're trying it hot. They're trying it cold, just like we do, to really make sure that we're getting the blends correct. It's a process. The same thing with sourcing all of our ingredients. It's why we are slow. It's why our ruby chai took so long. Our very first chai blend took so long to make, because we had to source every one of those spices and then find the right blend, and everything. The time is worth it though, because once you get it, you're like, yes, this is it. And then to watch everybody when they enjoy it for the very first time, that is amazing. My handy dandy assistant put a comment in there. It says it's hard to find good testers. It is not hard to find good volunteers. I do trust my testers a lot. I have amazing testers, and a huge shout out to them. They do a great job of the positives and negatives, which is what we need to hear. But people have to be able to be like, my mom could never be a tester, because my mom would be like, oh, it's delicious, and then just not tell me it wasn't delicious. I remember I made a chicken soup one time, and I was trying a new recipe for just a plain chicken soup. And I used too much sage in it. And she was like, oh, it's so delicious. And I was like, I tried. I'm like, oh, there's way too much sage. This doesn't taste good. And then she was like, well, I didn't want to say anything and hurt your feelings. I'm like, no, you have to be willing to hurt my feelings if you're a tea tester. I need to make sure you're telling me the truth. So that's why my mom could never be a good tester. We love her for other reasons, but she can never be a good tester. She's got the mom thing going on. Oh, it's wonderful. No, until it really is wonderful, we don't want to put it out there. So, other questions for me tonight? Anything else that you wanted to chat about? I do know that I'm sneaking up here. Next Sunday is June 1st. Can you believe that? Next Sunday, it's June already. I hope everybody's having a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend. Stephanie says, Sage can definitely get away from you. It totally did. I think I accidentally added it twice. That was my problem. I think I accidentally added it so it was twice as much, but it's okay. I perfected my chicken soup recipe now, and it definitely doesn't have too much sage. Then my recipe that I use now doesn't even have it in there. So, next week, one of the things that we'll be talking about on the live is our summer kiss. And that is that peach tea that I was talking about. We're going to be talking about that for sure and some different things to do. So Stephanie has a question for me, and I put Diane's up there. How long does it take for your teas to arrive after you place your order? So that is a great question. If it is local, I can usually get it within 24 hours. If it is not local, it is anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. So one of the things that we have the benefit of doing, because I'm a numbers geek, is we know what we sold and what we used the previous year. And so I try to buy the proper amount. But when we go to an event, if something sold way more than we thought it did, or thought it would, which is a great problem to have. But then sometimes if I have to order it kind of, other than when I'm getting it in bulk in advance, it can take 1 to 3 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer. So like last year we did the Tulip Festival in Wamego, and it was really big and we did well, and we hadn't anticipated that we would do as well. And so we went through and sold out of a couple of our teas, and then I had to hurry up and try and make more because we were in the farmers market. If we go to our very first event in September, we usually start making our teas like a month or two before they're available, depending. So when we're preparing for the fall, we're trying to make them. The September teas we're trying to make in like July, and the October tea that we'll go through we're trying to make in August. So it's no longer than 2 months old by the time everybody gets to it. And if I run out at that point, I sometimes have to wait longer. Sometimes I can get it within a week, but there have been times where there have been delays along the way, especially when it's an international thing. And I have to just wait until it comes in. And that's where it could take a couple of weeks.
There's somebody in Massachusetts who had to actually freeze-dry pears to get their order. Man.
There was someone in Massachusetts who loves the Starlight pear, and we actually had to. We had pears, but they weren't freeze-dried, and we actually had to freeze-dry the pears right then in order to fulfill the order, because that would be. So yeah, it takes sometimes, usually within a week we're good, but sometimes it does take longer. I will tell you that we did get some of our ingredients a little earlier this year because with all the political stuff, and I'm not getting into politics pro or con or anything like that, but there had been talk about delays from overseas coming in, and so we did purchase a little bit more earlier in the summer, like in the late spring, to make sure we would have enough so that we wouldn't get behind. Because one of the goals that we do is throughout the summers, we're like I said, in July and August, we're really focused on preparing all the teas that we're going to need for September and October into kind of November-ish.
I'm trying to be all day after.
All right. I'm so glad that you're enjoying that. I love that. So, other questions. Thank you, Stephanie, for those kind words. Diane, yes, it was you. I believe it was you, but that's okay. You're not the only one that we've done that for. So there was one time that we got an order. Harmony is ending. Harmony is available April, May, and June. So June is the last month you can get Harmony with the strawberries in it. And there was one time that we had, I'll say 4 ounces left. And then we went to an event and those 4 ounces sold, and we came back and there was an order for 1 more ounce of Harmony. And we're like, oops, I guess we need to make a little more. But we try not to over make anything. We try to really, so if we sold, let's make the math easy. If we sold 10 at an event, we might go in there with like 12 for like a Harmony, because it's not a year-round blend. So I'm trying to really cut it close so that we don't have any hanging around. And when we do have it hanging around, that's sometimes why you see some of those special blends at the next quarterly live sale. So if we make too much Harmony, you would anticipate seeing some Harmony for sale at our summer one, because there might only be 1 or 2 ounces left. And again, you don't want your tea sitting around in a warehouse, although the warehouse is our house right now, but you don't want it sitting around for a year and waiting until next year. We're going to want to use that up. I mean, and if the worst case scenario, I have to drink it, then, sometimes those are just the sacrifices that you have to make in the tea business, is that we have to drink that 1 or 2 ounces that we're left with. I'm just saying, sometimes you just have to do that.
Or give it away free to raffle row.
We have been asked occasionally to provide like a basket or something for some of the local charities around in the area, and those will also typically be those teas that we'll put in that basket, just because we always want everything to be fresh, no longer than like 2 months old. That's kind of the longest we really want to hold the tea. We don't want to have it sitting around waiting here, aging. So typically we try and make sure everything has been made within the 2 months. You're welcome, Diane. And we do occasionally get asked for things out of season too. And that's why I'm like, I don't have any. Somebody asked me in July and they're like, oh, I meant to get a Harmony. If I have one left, I'm okay. If I don't have one left, that's where I have to be like, I'm sorry. Because by then we've taken the other strawberries, they're freeze dried and put aside for our Winter's Kiss tea. That is the popular one as well. All right. Other questions while we're here?
Will there be an asparagus tea?
There's not going to be an asparagus tea. No asparagus tea. I'm sorry. I am working on a tea. I talked about it last week. This week got away from me. I had intended to go ahead and start playing around with it last week, but my calendar is still pretty booked right this second. So I didn't get to it. And that is going to be a caffeine-free blend. And right now I'm looking at the 3 main ingredients being lemon, lavender, and rose petals. Remembering that rose isn't got words. Is not going to add a floral note. It's going to add a honey note. Rose hips add the floral note. So we're looking at that potentially coming up. I was hoping to get it out to my testers this weekend, but it might be next weekend that I get it out to them, if not a little sooner. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We are looking at trying to expand our main line for the caffeine free by adding 1, maybe 2 more to it, probably 1 more. And then we will have the poll up for all of next week about Highland Dawn. We'll see what people are saying. and we'll try and decide if that's going to become permanent or not. And then I do like to have, so here's part of the other thing is I do like to have certain blends that are only available on those quarterly live sales. That's the only time you can get it, because those are when I typically do the more unique ones, or maybe they're a little more pricey, so they're not going to be on like the everyday. They might source ingredients, like we had the Aloha Breeze, and that had a silver needle white tea in it, and it had mango, and it had pineapple, and it had vanilla bean in it. I knew there was another green. Thank you. But like silver needle white tea to get the higher quality, I mean, that's just more pricey. And so that's going to be like a once a year tea that's available at the live only, as opposed to regularly.
It's like the July or February 29th tea there.
Yeah, we do have our leap year tea. That one is only available every 4 years, just to celebrate leap year day, but also it has a much higher quality level of ingredients in it. We kind of pull out all the stops because it's only available once every 4 years. But all right. So there is an asparagus ice cream flavor at the Hadley Homemade Ice Cream Farm. Oh my goodness. I know. I don't know that I would try it. When it comes to ice cream, I'm not into all those super exotic flavors. I like vanilla. I like strawberry. I like chocolate chip. I like, some of them are okay, but like when it gets really crazy, I don't know. That just goes a little too far. You all can enjoy that. I will let the handy dandy assistant enjoy that one.
Yay!
Yeah, he can have all the asparagus ice cream that he would like. Speaking of which, he is still, because we're not huge ice cream people, I think is just about finished off that quart of, Harmony ice cream that we made, about a month and a half ago, about 6 weeks ago. And he forgot about it. Otherwise it would have been gone already. He forgot about it in our freezer, came across it and was like, oh, ice cream. And so I know he just finished some of that. All right. No other questions. Thank you for joining me tonight. I will see you next week. We're going to be definitely talking. And I have a unique twist on that tea, something unusual that you can do with it. So I will see you next week at 6 p.m. Central. I hope everybody has a wonderful week and a wonderful Memorial Day, where we can all appreciate those who gave the last measure for our freedoms. All right, everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.